Hi, I'm Jennifer Ackerman-Haywood from CraftSanity, and today we're going to show you how to make a baby blanket. Actually, you can make any kind of blanket. It could be a lap blanket, it could be just a blanket for yourself, whatever. We're going to make these blankets today on the CraftSanity Blanket Loom, and we're going to show you how to do that from start to finish, so stay tuned. Okay, so now we're going to warp the baby blanket loom. In order to do this, we're going to tie the yarn onto the top left corner, just like I do with all the other looms in the collection. And then I'm going to undo the top bolt, the wing nut. I'm just going to loosen that a little bit, and I'm just going to wrap the yarn around the bolt and then tighten the wing nut right on top. That'll hold it in place so you don't have to tie a knot. I just tied this on very loosely. That wing nut is holding the yarn in place. Then I'm going to take the yarn from the top corner around that very first peg, back up and around the first peg on the top. And I'm just going to keep going just like this all the way across. You can prop the loom up and warp that way if you want to. It's also nice to have, if you have a friend, help you out with this. It makes it go a little bit easier when you get to the part where you're having a hard time reaching across. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand this up now, the weaving part. Okay, so we have all the warp is on the loom and we're ready to start weaving. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go around this first peg here and go all the way across. Do the same. Go around the peg here and go back over here. And this is to establish our weaving pattern. We went across, and we're going to weave this as a single strand, this end piece right here. This end strand is going to be woven by itself. Everything else will be woven as a group of two. So to establish that, we've gone over this one, so we're going to take this loop off and put it over the strand that's going across. I'm going to do that for every other loop. We're going to take off and put over that yarn we have stretched across the loom. You could weave over under all the way across, but I find this is a little bit easier because it prevents you from making a mistake because you're grabbing each loop, pulling it over. Okay, so in an effort to speed up the weaving process, I decided to tape two pieces of an old vertical blinds together, and I have put this in here. You can use a dowel. I mean, most normal folks would just go out and get a dowel that is wider than the loom. You put that in there, and then what it does is it opens up the shed here. So every other time I'm weaving across, I'm going to be able to very quickly put my yarn through. So let me show you how this works. Just like you're weaving a pot holder, you hold the yarn so it's in a loop on this end. And you're going to, our aim is to get to that side and put the loop around the peg. So I'm going to reach in here. It helps when you're weaving in high winds outdoors too, to have a shed stick in there. And I'm just reaching in and grabbing that loop. And I'm going to park this up here on that second peg. And then I have a little bit of an arc here. That means I didn't pull it just super tight. You don't want to pull it super tight, so you just use your hands like a comb here, spread out your fingers, just push that up. Okay, and I'm going to pay attention to how much yarn I have left, because I want to try to add my next, when I have to add on the next skein, I want to be able to make it across, so I can see that I have enough to get through here again. So for the next pass, I can't follow the same pattern, otherwise it won't, you know, you can do a couple things. You can turn this so it's flatter and just put it flat. And then you just grab every other one. And that shed stick will still help you because it keeps the rows separated. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to make the knot as close to that peg as I can. And Okay, so now I'm ready to continue, and this knot's just going to get woven in. These yarn tails will get woven in later, and that just keeps the knot from being in the middle of the weaving. So once you have your weaving completed, we're going to do one final step. We're going to come back to that single strand on the end, and we're going to weave this across all the way over here, and then we'll remove this from the loom. So I'm going to get started here. And the way you do this is you don't have to go around a peg. You're just going to follow exactly how this one was woven. So I'm going to just come back through. And at the beginning, this is a little cumbersome because you have a really long end. But I'm going to sneak through here. And you can start picking up. Okay, so I go under 2 strands at 2 loops at a time with my crochet hook and just pull it through. We're just going to do that all the way across the loom. Now that the loom is completely full and this last strand has been woven in across the top, we're ready to remove the blanket from the loom. Now, how we're going to start that is right here in the corner. We're going to take our crochet hook, take the first loop off, and we're moving away from the yarn tails. So when we come back around, we're going to have something to secure that last loop. You take the first loop, pop off the second to the first. Take that next one off, put it through the loop on your hook, and just continue like that all the way around the loom. You all right? Okay, so when we get to the end here, we're going to finish up this last couple loops, and then what we're going to do is just place this back, place the end loop on a peg, and then just carefully rotate the loom. And what this does is it allows you to work on that the top every time, so that way you're not like crouching down trying to do this sideways. It's just easier to work straight across. So it just simplifies things a little bit. And you just keep doing what you were doing. And it will get looser. So working across the top also helps you have gravity on your side here. So the piece, when you're on the last side, it'll be hanging down, not falling off to the side. So I just found this is the easiest way to remove this without the blanket coming off the loom before you're ready for it. So this is the last edge that I'm going to finish here, and I just came upon a spot where we added some yarn. So if you run out of, you end one skein, you add another one. Try to make your joins at the end so it's not in the middle of the blanket. That way you can weave in the ends a little more discreetly and you don't have a knot in the middle of the blanket. You also want to do that with rugs too. Just kind of do your join on the end if you can. Okay, so once you get the blanket about halfway off on the last side, it starts to get kind of droop down. If you don't want that to get dirty, what I do is I just push it back on to the loom, but leave a little bit of space here because that's going to pull in a little bit, and then I just keep going, and then my hands are free and I don't have to hold on to that, but it's also not going to be dragging on the floor, or in this case on my deck. Okay, so now you're to the last loop. I'm going to take that off and pull up a loop on this yarn tail, and gravity is kind of taking hold here. And then to give this some stability back, I go underneath and pull up the loop again, go through like I'm crocheting, and I do that a couple times just to keep that last loop from stretching out. And then just pull your yarn tail all the way through. And then we can pop this off. And we still have to weave in some ends, but the blanket is for the most part done. Right, so to weave in the yarn tails, you just follow the weave structure and pull that yarn through. And then what you want to do is just kind of ease it back a little bit here. And this was that knotted edge where we had a join where we added new yarn. And so if you want to leave it so it's there on the, it kind of blends in on the edge, that knot, and you just ease it in here. This is a variegated yarn, so you have a lot of colors overlapping each other, so you don't have to worry where they end up, because they're crossing all throughout the blanket, so no worries there. Okay, and I think I have one more to do over here, and this is a long one, so I think I'm gonna go right along the edge here. And you don't have to go the whole length of the yarn. You can cut it off. I tend to weave in, kind of go to extremes here. The reason why I do that is because if it pops out, the end pops out, I want to make sure there's enough there so I can weave it back in. It's not like right on an edge where it can come unraveled. Alright, so we have our finished blanket here. So we just have to find a baby to wrap in it. I'm not going to have any more babies, so I got to give it to somebody else. But these are fun to make. These can also be lap blankets. These are great actually for people of any age to have just when you're watching TV. Or they make great presents for new parents, and they're fun to make. So the greatest thing about this is once you take it off and weave in those couple ends, you're done, and you haven't wasted any yarn. This takes roughly 2 skeins of the really bulky yarn. It depends on how much you can get out of the skein, but in the directions we'll give you some more details about yardage and so forth. But try it out and let us know. Send us pictures of your finished blankets. We'd love to see them.